Hi, and welcome to the First Time Home Buyers Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Tom Sommers, with Coldwell Banker Burnett in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Eric McKenna, from Remax Advanced in the Pittsburgh area. Eric, how's it going today?
Fantastic. Great to be here. Thank you to everyone who has supported this podcast. It just continues to be week after week phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you hanging in there with us when we've been a little bit not as organized as one would like to be, but we're trying to get back on once a week. That's what we're trying to do. So thanks for bearing with us, and we appreciate all of the emails and the feedback. Today we want to talk about title work, but one specific aspect of title work. I want to talk about a cloud on a title. Now, the chances of this happening are so slim, but important to mention so people understand what it is. At least for Minnesota, I think it's on page 3 of the purchase agreement. It talks about title and examination. And essentially the catchphrase or the sentence in there that's the most important that I always point out to my clients is that we are giving the sellers up to 30 days past the date of closing to cure any and all title issues so we can move forward with the purchase. So that means if the one thing that holds this up from closing is a title problem, you have an extra 30 days past that date of closing. So what's a title issue? A title issue is something that has gone wrong somewhere along the line in the chain of title that wasn't taken care of or done properly. So the most common would be, like, say, in Minneapolis, I've had 3 of these, where the garage, which are most of them are detached garages, sits 1 foot over a neighbor's house on their line. Or it sits there. I had one where it was in an alley that was kind of like a cul-de-sac alley, and there was literally a plot of land that was 100 feet long by 50 feet wide that no one seemed to own. It made no sense, but it slipped through the cracks for years and years and years. In all of the cases, they were all resolved, but they had to go through what we call a quiet title action. And essentially what it is it's a legal process that the title company has to go through on your behalf to clear up the title. There's many different steps to it, and I can't go into detail because, quite honestly, I don't know all of them, but it has to be advertised, and they basically have to wait for someone to lay claim to that plot of land. And then after a certain amount of time, once no one has, then the courts are able to basically amend or change that legal description so that you then own the property. My advice to you is never close without this being corrected. There are some foreclosure companies who will hire these semi-fly-by-night closing companies, which is a whole nother discussion. So I'm just going to say, whatever you do, don't ever use a title company by the seller. Choose your own title company because they're working on your behalf. That's number one. And secondly, never buy a house that has any kind of title issue, because I promise you that will come up again and it will cost you a ton of money moving forward. So if you find the mistake, just like on a previous episode when Eric was talking about septic and wells, you want to make sure that you hold the seller accountable to correct those issues.
Absolutely right. And then, Tommy, you pretty much hit the nail on the head here. I just want to reemphasize a couple things. In Pennsylvania, the buyer picks the closing company, and that's the way I think it should always be. I know in some states you can choose. I get that, but and that's why I am so enamored by the closing company I use. I'll give them a plug right here. PA Land Title. Phenomenal people, phenomenal attorneys. They just do a highly professional job for my clients. Now, a lot of other firms do as good of a job naturally, but I trust them, and they are very diligent, and they do their due diligence for all their buyers and their title work and researching the property and so forth. I do want to point out too something on the seller disclosure that is often kind of glossed over by sellers sometimes, and shame on the realtors or the agents if they don't specifically instruct the seller to be accurate. There is a provision, at least in Pennsylvania, on the seller disclosure that talks about, are you aware of any defects in this title or any agreements or disagreements in regards to the property boundary lines or anything that would impede a clear title on the property. Now, a lot of homeowners won't even understand that jargon, so it's important that the realtor explains that to the seller.
Yeah, because I
But
don't have that in Minnesota. But to your point, and it's not always on purpose, but I would say the most guilty party typically is a realtor who's not willing to sit down with their client. So like when Eric and I list a house, we always sit down with our seller and we walk through that disclosure line by line because they always have questions because they don't do it every day. So of course they're going to. So when you see something that's half filled out, you have every right to go back to your agent and say, hey, can you get them to fill this out?
Okay,
Sorry,
so
carry on.
no, on that same point, the bottom line also is, the seller may have no idea of any of this because it could be 5 owners back and it's never been resolved. So we let the closing company do their due diligence. You're as a buyer, you pay a small fee for their services, and quite frankly, for all the work they do to enact your closing and to handle all this, that fee is very small, in my humble opinion. And it's also part of title insurance as well, to guarantee to you, the homeowner, that if something does crop up that wasn't able to be vetted out in here, you're protected. So again, you want the closing company that you're working with as a buyer to be exemplary. Lean on your realtor. Lean on your realtor. I can't stress it enough. I love the title company that I recommend. And for whatever reason, I've never had a buyer use anybody else, but if they had a problem personal, if they had an issue with this one, I have 3 or 4 other tremendous ones they can choose from. It's the buyer's choice, of course, but you need a great, solid closing company with a great reputation. It's so important.
Well, yeah, and then just to make another clarification, I'd also like to say that the title companies and closers are not the people who insure the title. There's an insurance company for that. So if you're ever in a situation where you're purchasing a foreclosure and you're forced to use the closing company of the seller, because that has actually happened before, then what you would have your agent do is instruct that title company that you want what they call a marked up title binder, where it shows how they went through literally the whole process of everything to ensure that not only the title is clear, but if there's any issues, you also have the information of the insurance company that's insuring the title. Because what if that title company disappears in a year? Well, then you're out of luck if you don't want to know what your insurance policy is. So
Absolutely.
Again, it's about hiring someone who knows these things to ask these questions to take care of you.
Yeah.
That's all it is. So this is probably one of those that episode wise that people are like, well, title company, but it's important to just know a little bit about it. So that's also our hope too, is when we do these shows that we are educating you and giving you some things to think about, because we're trying to make our industry better too. We're trying to hold ourselves accountable as well as other people to do the best jobs that we can for our clients.
And I guess I'll just add, to close this down, probably, that it just goes back again to leaning on your realtor, trusting your realtor, and letting them put you in connection as a buyer with a tremendous, well-respected, hard-working closing company on your behalf. It's an area that's often overlooked. I get it. They're just there to pass paperwork and have you sign your life away on a mortgage, right? It's a lot more than that. It's a lot more than that. They're a big part of getting all the moving parts congruent. So when you walk in closing, you know you're signing with confidence, and you walk out of there a homeowner with your rear end covered.
Yep. And if you're sitting here and you're watching these episodes that we're pumping out, you should be so well informed as a buyer, you're almost going to scare your realtor. And this should help you pick the very best agent that you can for yourself. Truly,
Absolutely.
we want that for you, because we think that all of this makes everything better. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a listing appointment or sat down with a buyer who's had a bad experience with a real estate agent. And that, I feel bad for that, because it's like, it shouldn't necessarily be that way. I make mistakes. Eric makes mistakes. We all make mistakes, but they're always a fixable thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
we take ownership in it. I mean, listen, no one's perfect, but if I make a mistake, I can guarantee it's not going to be a monumental one, because I've done this. Same with Tommy. I mean, this isn't our first rodeo, so to speak.
Right.
But little things. But when we find them, we correct them, and we take ownership in it. And you want that in a relationship with your realtor. You want them to take ownership in any mistake and not only fix it, go above and beyond. And that's what both of us do in our practices.
Yeah, you don't want your realtor sitting at his desk like the dog there in the corner. Right? We want them awake and working on your behalf. So
That's right. That's right.
thank you so much for tuning in again. We really appreciate it. We will be back next week with some more fun.
Yep.
I don't know. Some
Yep.
of you probably think this is fun. I don't know, but we're informative for you, and we appreciate you hanging in there. And again, thank you for all of the emails and response and the support and the downloads. Thank you, because we're really trying to make a go of this, and the success has been great. So until next time, Eric, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, just to reiterate, thank you so much for the support. Tommy and I could never have imagined at all that the concept that we came up with here would proliferate like it has, and well beyond our own markets. So for all of you out in the continental United States and Hawaii and Alaska, all of you have participated and emailed us both, and have actually your content, your questions, and the content in your questions are kind of where we are right now, because we have gone through the methodical part of from inception to closing. And now we're looking at strategies in between and things to key on, and even help you personally, mentally, and administratively get ready for the process. And that's where we're at right now.
Well, and we're even getting feedback from other realtors around the country, which that's a mind blower. So very cool.
Agreed.
And we appreciate the support of everybody. So have a wonderful rest of the week wherever you are in this world, and we will see you next week. We can always, we can always be found on Spreaker, as well as YouTube. We will be expanding some other options here soon. So stay with us. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you soon.
See y'all.